Hi, everyone. Jim Flynn here from Local Search Group. And I want to talk to you today about some of the top sporting events that I've ever been to in my lifetime. I've been to numerous sporting events. You'll see this in this top 12 countdown. And it's recently relevant. Knowing that proximity matters, you'll see that there's kind of a bookend scenario here that makes sense in terms of why I'm recording this video now and how we got to where we are as to what I think is the number one sporting event that I've actually attended. So I've been to as many as 3 Super Bowls. I have been to numerous World Series games. I've been to numerous NBA finals. So without further ado, let's count down the top 12 sporting events that Jim Flint has been to. The number one, or I'll start with number 12, actually. If I am going to share, you may want to watch this at a faster speed. I'm going to share the screen, and then I'm going to go to number 12. This was one that I actually attended this weekend. It was the NBA Finals in Indianapolis. So let's take a little bit of the highlights from this particular game.
Down the lane, kicks it out inside for Toppin. Largest lead of the game.
I mean, we had a great ending, but it wasn't that great because several free throws were missed throughout the game. A lot of refs, a lot of SGA foul calls, a lot of discussion about the disparity with OKC. But I do want to say this: the state of Indiana knows basketball, and it's, suffice it to say, very loud crowd, very electric crowd. So with that as a backdrop, let's go to number 11 on my list. It is actually a game that I was at on Father's Day, another NBA Finals. In this one, we had the Miami Heat playing the San Antonio Spurs. It was the year, and we actually saw at the conclusion of the game the presentation of the trophy to Kawhi Leonard. He was the MVP.
Once again, unbelievable.
The offense just moved the ball incredibly well.
Does it again.
Spurs were up by 20 the entire fourth quarter. That wasn't 20 I think that was Mills. But it was just a celebration. Tim Duncan was making shots. Ginobili was making shots. Kawhi Leonard was playing defense on LeBron James, effectively shutting him down. And it was really redemption from the last year when the Spurs had lost that game, heartbreaking Game 6. When Ray Allen made that three-pointer, that made this particular victory all that much more sweet. Now, the next one that we're going to see on the list was one that was quite a surprise. I was at work. It was, I believe, a Thursday. Hockey was brand new to Dallas. I happened to be working in the regional office for Nissan Motor Sales, and they said, "Hey, Jim, we know you want to go to the Spurs game, but we can't get tickets in San Antonio. However, here in Dallas, we do have tickets to Game 5 of the Buffalo Sabres versus the Dallas Stars." So I was able to attend this game. And if you were to think about it, I mean, the people in Buffalo would give anything to be able to go to a Stanley Cup game. Yet here I was in Dallas, mind you, in the rafters, at the very top, sitting and enjoying the game. I'm not even sure that the Stars won. I do know that the Stars won the Cup in 6. It was not the closeout game, but it was a great night, June 17th, 1999. All right, so as we continue through our countdown, the next one was a journey that started 3 years earlier before I was able to finally attend. And I would argue that today it is one of the most difficult tickets to secure in all of sports. And I'm not even talking about the Super Bowl. I'm actually talking about the Masters. And I was fortunate enough to be able to go in 2008, very low-key trip. And as we watched, I mean, everybody was there. You're going to see it here in just a second.
For birdie.
To see this fella named Tiger Woods. Tiger did not win this particular tournament. Trevor Immelman won the tournament. But the crowds, the size, just the whole electricity surrounding Tiger and the event has continued to grow from what I couldn't even have imagined it would have been a bigger space in 2008 to where it is today. So I saw a brief highlight of Tiger we're not going to go into too much depth. Here we go.
Tiger to save par from the bunker.
And as you can see, it just wasn't Tiger's year, but it was a great experience to be able to go to that. Now we're going to go back in time a little bit. This was one of the best college football events. I think, in fact, I would dare say the second best college football game I've been to, and I've been to so many. This one was where Larry Fitzgerald put on a one-man show against Texas A&M. There's a catch. I don't think I have it.
Double coverage does not bother him at all.
Let's see if we'll find it. But he made over the shoulder that was reminiscent of Willie Mays. It was so good, having watched it in the stadium, that I refused to watch replays of it for about a decade because I was worried that it would tarnish my memory of the catch that he actually made. And as you look, each time I'm pulling up these videos, it's got that circle as he's trying to catch up to where it is. I queued up a number of videos, so it takes a little bit more time than you could otherwise imagine. We're not going to see that particular highlight, but we are going to see one of Larry Fitzgerald's several touchdowns that day. It was, as they note here, quite the show. 135 yards, 3 touchdown game against Texas A&M in 2003. All right, so the next one that I'm going to share with you is another college football game. It is another Texas A&M occasion. And so as I share this one with you, know that it was JFF and Johnny Football. This was not a regular season game. He had had quite the year to begin with. This was, in fact, the Cotton Bowl versus Oklahoma. The team had lost 2 games, came into the season, unexpectedly ranked low. It was their first year in the SEC, and nobody thought they were going to do anything. Back then, we didn't have a 12-team playoff or a 16 playoff, or even, I don't think at this time, even a 14 playoff. But had A&M been able to be eligible in today's configuration, they would have been a team that nobody would have wanted to contend with, in part because not only was the offense playing well, but the defense was playing quite well also. I want to show you this highlight. I happened to be in a lower level box and was watching this game, and Johnny was running towards us. I'm going to let it play a couple times. It was just one of those amazing things. His ability to cut back, it was remarkable, not more so ever than this particular play.
9 at the 23, Manziel reverses, Manziel with the lane, Manziel down the sideline, and Manziel still running out of bounds.
They thought the announcers thought he was out of bounds. The players kind of let up because they thought he was out of bounds, but Johnny Football knew that he had planted his foot and was actually inbounds. I think we're going to get to see the replay here. Boom. Wasn't even really close.
It was clearly in. That's a touchdown.
And it was a touchdown. And I was on that sideline that he was running to. It was just quite the game. And then he was doing stuff like this all evening. I mean, you just couldn't stop him. You really couldn't stop that team at the end of the year. They found whatever higher gear they were looking for, and it was really him at his best. It was the defense at their best, and I would even go so far as to argue that it was Kevin Sumlin at his best. All right, so now we're down to 3, 4, 5. We're down to the final 6, the top 6, of which there are 3 Super Bowls here. Super Bowls are a pretty big deal. Super Bowls are pretty exciting. And I'll start you off on the first Super Bowl that started everything. As we look at that particular Super Bowl, it was the Steelers versus the Packers. And quick backdrop, I had been applying every year.
3 plays later,
this was actually a very close game. You can see in the fourth quarter, 25-31. However, I'd been applying for year after year after year when the Super Bowl had a lottery. Finally, I got selected. We go to this particular game. We get there my wife and I, Cheryl, get there 4.5 hours before the game kicks off. Now, earlier in the week in Dallas, there had been a lot of ice, and it was just the first day after several snowy, icy days where the sun was actually coming out. This created some logistic problems at the stadium. First and foremost, there was ice melting off the sides. Second, at the stadium, they had brought in temporary seats, of which we were a part, but nobody knew what was going on. They knew that they were moving the people from the side of the stadium to the end zone portions of the stadium, so all of the people entering were going to be condensed into 2 locations instead of multiple locations. Also, the fire marshal had determined that the seats were not structured in a way that was going to pass inspection, and he wasn't going to let the inspection go. He was going to make the inspection happen. So let's watch a little bit more of the highlights of the game. Less than a minute left. It's 4th and 5. Steelers have the ball. Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers' only Super Bowl
do
win.
or die time. 4th and 5. Last chance saloon. Ben Roethlisberger throws incomplete to Wallace. Nice. That is it. The Green Bay Packers get the big-time defensive stop, and there will be no 7th trophy in Pittsburgh this year for number 7. There will be a return to Green Bay of the trophy named after their legendary coach,
Look how young Aaron Rodgers
3 years after taking over for Brett Favre, does what Brett Favre never did do, and that is win the Super Bowl MVP and hoisting the Lombardi Trophy for Green Bay.
So in that particular game, what was crazy about it, due to the delay that occurred sometime right before that occasion that you just saw, a person from the NFL walked up and down the temporary stands that we were in, and she started passing out a white letter down the aisle that we were on, including, the rows in front of us and the rows in back of us. And as we're sitting there in the middle of the fourth quarter, I read the document. It had the NFL letterhead, and it basically apologized for the difficulties that we had secured today in entering the building. I've been to thousands of sporting events, and I had never seen an occasion where it took 4.5 hours to get into the building. And as a result, the NFL on the letterhead said, in an effort to apologize, we would like to either reimburse you for the tickets today or secure a seat for you at a future Super Bowl. Well, as I told Cheryl at the moment, I was like, well, it looks like this wasn't not only the first, it's not going to be the last, because we get to select which Super Bowl we get to go to. And I, in my heart of hearts, knew that Super Bowls were coming up in Indianapolis, I think San Francisco, and then New Orleans. And so I was like, oh, we're going to be on the short list for New Orleans. There is no doubt about this one. And that is exactly what we did, which takes us to our next stop on our list of the top sporting events that I have personally been to. This one was the 49ers, February 4th, 2016
goal line,
versus
and the Ravens
Ravens.
Got the ball back.
Now, this was Joe Flacco. This was the
field position
Harbaugh
right around midfield,
brothers,
3rd
both
and
the
10,
coaches
less than
Super
a
Bowl.
minute, 2 minutes to go.
And this was also the Super Bowl
Flacco to Jacoby Jones wide open.
where the lights went out. Joe Flacco ended up being the MVP. Baltimore Ravens ended up winning the game. But it wasn't without some drama coming off the closed caption. That's not really helping us enjoy this anymore.
And he was not done in the big play department.
So Baltimore was up 23, lights go out, and all of a sudden San Francisco comes back. It actually turns the game into quite a contest. Fantastic finish, if you will.
Came out, she was spectacular.
21-6
is your score. Here is
Beyonce was in halftime.
After the Beyonce concert, it's Jacoby Jones, 8 yards
Baltimore
deep in
down
the
by
end zone,
6.
first
Here
and
we
3,
go.
and he is gone.
I mean, it seemed like this game was all but over at this point, 28-6.
He's thinking about he's like, yo, stay back. Oh.
Right, because every halftime speech in football says we're going to stop the other team 3 and out and get the ball back. Well, they kicked it off and they got the ball back. There was no 3 and out. It was touchdown for 6. And out. And so as we watch him run, I'm waiting for the video to move forward to where the lights actually went out. Harbaugh was not very happy. Jim Harbaugh was not. And there we go. The lights go out. If you've ever been to a Super Bowl, it's kind of disconcerting.
Power outage.
Yeah, power outage. The Super Bowl. And you ever wonder if something's going to actually happen at a Super Bowl? So it turns out nothing happened. We got to hang out a little bit longer at the Super Bowl. And during that interim break, Kaepernick warmed up and turned the game into a much more interesting contest. Here we go again. 34-29. 3rd and goal.
Crabtree can't corral it. Incomplete.
Doesn't catch it. We're less than a minute. This is pretty much for the game. The whole
Kaepernick flinging it to Crabtree. Some contact.
Could have entirely been a different story. But you know the rest of the story. He didn't end up staying in the NFL much longer for a lot of different reasons. But that particular night, after the lights went out in New Orleans, he was next to incredible. One of the most amazing comebacks that didn't materialize that I've ever seen. So now, as I move through, we're into the top, or the final 4, let's call it that. And I'm going to share with you the next occasion. This was in 2003. What had happened, it was Father's Day, and Cheryl and I were lucky enough to go to this game with Cheryl's brother, Michael, as well as her mom, Carolyn. I had worked to get tickets, and they were literally the last tickets in the stadium. And you can imagine us sitting there in the fourth quarter, and New Jersey, as you can see here, is up by 8. The Spurs had a 3-2 lead in the series, and this was game 6. So if they close out at home, everything's good and A-okay. But if they lose, now you're headed back, I believe at the time, for Game 7 in New Jersey. I'm not exactly sure the formatting at the time, but needless to say, it was like, wait a second, we could be here when they win it all. I mean, wow, we had that happen in 2014, but this is 2003. So at that point, we had not yet had that experience. And so while we can see Steve Kerr is here, Malik Rose, we know Manu Ginobili, there's Tim Duncan. The guy that surprised us all, the guy that they don't give a lot of credit for winning this game was actually Steven Jackson.
Off the glass.
You better recognize that too.
And here are some of the highlights. Jason Kidd happened to be on the other team. And look at that, 69-59. Up 10 minutes left to go. Here's Duncan making some moves. Big fundamental.
Big guys not turning and facing against a bigger player.
These are highlights. Here's Ginobili with a pick. He happened to be, I believe, a rookie at that time and was without hesitation the X Factor. There's Richard Jefferson. Now, instead of being in the NBA Finals, he was following the NBA Finals in Indianapolis last week. And now here we are, 9-point game with 8 minutes left, 7-point game. Duncan's playing all out. Let's see if Steven Jackson gets involved or they just keep running the ball through. Nope, good pass from Duncan to the lead. Here's one of the clutch threes. Boom. So now we're down by 2. This first team played defense and are able to erase. I mean, this was David Robinson's last game. Here we go, Jackson again. They left him open. If they're going to lose, are you really going to lose to Steven Jackson? Well, it turns out the New Jersey Nets, that's exactly what happened to him. And look at this, Robinson in the last game that he would ever play in the NBA. That's owner Peter Holt. And now we're looking, I think that's Stevie Claxton. He started burying jumpers, and all of a sudden, you're up 5. Duncan's out to Steven Jackson again. Are you kidding me? 3 threes in the fourth quarter? Wow. Oh, and then Bill Walton adds, the Jersey Nets actually cut Steven Jackson. Are you kidding me? No wonder he made all those shots. Jason Kidd's not done, but it sounded like a 19-0 run. It was some insane number. Jason Kidd makes another. Beats it close, trying to will the team to a victory. No, less than 50 seconds. And Steven Jackson has effectively turned this game over. We were down on the court after the game helping the city of San Antonio celebrate. We were out on 281. The interesting thing in San Antonio was the people who weren't at the game actually just got out in their cars and started driving around honking the horn. There was an immeasurable traffic jam on 281. It was standstill traffic. We actually got out of the car for a second and just kind of enjoyed the moment for what it was and how it happened. All right, so now we're down to the last 3, and I haven't actually had a baseball one in here yet, but this one is worth, I'd say it's noteworthy. We were definitely here. This is the end of Nolan Ryan's 7th no-hitter. This was May 1st of 1990. I was in college at ECU, and one of the teammates we had, Tim Grieve, his dad, Ben was his brother. Tom Grieve was the general manager, and we had study hall days, if you will, where we had the Thursday and Friday off. And so without anything to do on a Wednesday afternoon, Kim was able to get tickets from Tom that David Sweetman and I actually went to this game. The tickets that we had didn't actually have, interesting story, a receipt on them, so they didn't have a date. They just said basically where the seats were, and it was the stub of the ticket. We went in, we enjoyed the game. We got there probably a little bit late, but stayed, as you can see with all the crowd, to the very end. And the intensity that builds in a game like that is just one of the more amazing parts of baseball. It certainly was an enjoyable experience. And now we get to number 2 on my list, and you're going to be like, how could this not be number 1 once you see it? Because the New England Patriots were down 28-3. In fact, here is the scoring, 21-3 Atlanta in the third quarter. We're halfway through the third quarter. And as you can see, Matt Ryan drops back, hits the ball on the flat, and now it's 28-3 after the extra point, of course. As I look at that, I remember going to Cheryl, my wife Cheryl, and saying, hey, this game doesn't look like it's worth anything. We live here in Houston. Traffic can be notoriously bad here. You want to leave early? And she's like, Jim, it's the Super Bowl. How about you just hang out and see what's going on? I was actually spending time, if anyone knows who Neil Smith is, he used to be a defensive end for not only the Kansas City Chiefs, but the Broncos. And he was correctly pointing out that the rush, the pressure that the Falcons were getting was not something that was going to be sustainable. And look, I mean, that was not a play they made, but all of a sudden, you guys know the rest of the story. There were this particular catch,
And now this from Edelman. Incredible.
Edelman's catch here, that they just referenced. And they tie it up 28-28. Then we get to the final plays of the game. That was not a touchdown. But they called pass interference, arguably deservedly so. And we happen to be in that end zone. I've got video of this. That was not the play. It's a handoff right. And they made the run into the touchdown for the only Super Bowl game that ended in an overtime. I mean, how can you beat? And there it is. And the Patriots cemented Tom Brady's MVP season. They cemented the legacy of the Atlanta Falcons. And unfortunately, Matt Ryan was not able to find a way out after this. I mean, he found a way out of the NFL, but not a way out of that legacy. Just a sad dynamic. Which brings me to the number one sporting event that I've been to, and it just so happens that this event occurred last weekend. I will also tell you that the first of the events happened this last weekend, and so I'm recording this several days after the weekend where we went to two of the events that have been highlighted here. It is without a doubt, and partially because of the proximity, and partially because of what it meant to the league, one of the biggest games. So I will share this with you. It was Caitlin Clark's catching fire with 3 3-pointers in 38 seconds. It was electric. This is the first one. I'm just going to let it roll and maybe add some commentary.
Here's an incredible.
But she pulls up and nearly, we call her the logo, but that was nearly half court. And here's the second one.
Clark, another
you can see that it's just ridiculous. Feel that crowd, just like on Friday night with the Pacers.
Clark directing
And
traffic.
there's another
And
one.
then
She leans back.
with the
Brianna Stewart's guarding her, but as they run back down the court, they start kind of laughing at each other. You've probably seen the video by now.
Just the nerve, the
Here we go. Oh, and I think it's probably worth pointing out as we look. If you look at the whatever advertisement there is, that's me sitting courtside on this particular event. Those tickets became available the day before the event, and at the point that I purchased them, I did not know. It was kind of evident to me that it was likely that Clark wasn't going to play. She'd been sitting out for 2 weeks, so I was able to secure those tickets at the very last minute. Turned out to be the right call, and it turned out that Clark had missed playing for quite some time. She didn't miss any games at Iowa, didn't miss any games last year for the Fever. And so this is kind of the first extended absence that she's ever had in her career. And she came back with a vengeance. This was in the first half, 25 points that she put in. And I don't even think these shots hit the rim. Here it's like, you know, I just did the best I could. She's a league MVP. And they're only tied at the end of the first quarter, but she's not done. Look at these shots. I mean, it's just crazy. And I think what this reminded me the most of, I have seen Tiger play, and what he did for golf was tremendous. It changed the sport of golf, in my estimation. And as we look at what she's doing, I think she's changing the level, the trajectory, the interest in the WNBA. I watched something where Colin Cowherd said this was one of his top performances that he's ever seen in person, live or otherwise in the history of sports. And he compared it to Reggie Jackson's 3 home runs that he hit in the World Series. Mr. October kind of set a standard for when he came to the plate. And every time she let the ball go, no matter where she was standing on the court, I mean, you had to guard her, pick her up at half court. So there you have it. That's my updated list of the top 12 sporting events that I've actually attended in person during my lifetime. Number 12 happened to be this last weekend. Number 1 happened to be this past weekend, but it's been a rich history and I've enjoyed the time, the energy that I've spent with friends and family engaging in all the sports activities that are out there. Hope you enjoyed this video and we'll talk to you soon.